Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to the fourth episode of PEP Foundation's Conversations. For our new viewers, PEP of Promotion of Education in Pakistan Foundation, commonly known as PEP Foundation, is a New York-based public non-profit apolitical organization working closely with higher education institutes in Pakistan. I'm Anum, Essa, the moderator for today's session and Senior Communication Manager at PEP Foundation. Our topic for today is the need for digital competency in the education sector, particularly the higher education sector. Now, if we talk about a bit about the topic itself, digital competence is more than the ability to use a digital platform in practice. Instead, digital competence has four subdomains, which involves information, communication, production, and safety while using the internet and the online spaces. After this brief introduction of the topic, I will move on to our guests for today. Our first guest for today is Dr. Bilal Zubair, who is presently teaching at the National Defense University, Islamabad. Dr. Bilal has a PhD in International Relations from the School of Politics and International Relations, Quaid-e-Azam University, Islamabad. Dr. Zubair has been teaching at the higher education institutes in Pakistan for past 10 years and has taught at the University of London External Programs in Pakistan. Dr. Zubair has also authored several research publications and spoken at various international conferences and events. Thank you very much, Dr. Zubair, for joining us.
Thank you.
Ms. Amna Naveed is our next guest, who is currently serving as an assistant professor at COMSATS University Islamabad, Lahore campus. Ms. Amna is also pursuing her PhD from the University of Management and Technology, Lahore. Her research interests include computer-mediated communication, language and gender, bullying and harassment, social linguistics, critical discourse analysis, and language and media discourse. Thank you very much, Ms. Amna, for joining us. And last but not the least, to represent our students, we have with us Hassan Abdullah. Hassan is in the process of concluding his bachelor's in business administration, majoring in marketing from the COMSATS University, Islamabad. Hassan aspires to be a brand and digital marketing expert. All of you, thank you very much for joining us today. After this introduction, I would like to delve straight into the questions. And my first question would be directed to the educators in this discussion. So Ms. Amna and Dr. Zubair, are there any preliminary induction courses or training courses with respect to digital literacy that are given to teachers when they join the university? Or the teachers are expected to improve these skills in their own time? If you both could kindly elaborate one after the other. Over to Dr. Zubair first, and then Ms. Amna could answer the same question. Thank you.
Thank you, Anum. So since the third industrial revolution, and especially the last decade, the digital competency is fundamental for every human activity, and education is no exception. So the post-COVID scenario has just augmented the need for the stakeholders, and in case of education, teachers, students, and administration, to be more digitally, as you're calling, literate, or educate themselves in the digital manner. So normally, what we have found is that in universities, as I've taught many universities in Islamabad, before the start of every semester, even prior to the COVID, there used to be some sessions or training programs incorporating all those tools that were necessary for the teachers to become more educated and literate in the digital domain. And the reason was that most of the public or private sector universities had their own learning management systems intact. So through those learning management systems, it was imperative for the teachers to augment their knowledge about the digital domain. And that transition was somewhat more smooth during the COVID-19 pandemic, when these learning-based management systems enabled the teachers to become more acquainted to the needs of the hour, and that was to shift their focus in the post-COVID domain. So yes, these training sessions have always been there, and they are pretty much imperative to digitally link the teachers and the students, and it included the attendance and assessments, exams, quizzes, presentations, course plans, folder management. Everything was being taught to the teachers so they can easily cope up with the challenge at hand.
Thank you, Dr. Zubair. Over to you, Ms. Amna. Do you want me to repeat the question? You're on mute, actually.
Can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, sure, please. So it was basically my first question that what about the preliminary induction courses with regards to the digital literacy? Are teachers given any training or any sessions on how to use these digital platforms, or they are expected to learn these in their own time and at their own pace?
Thank you very much, Anna. Unfortunately, the teachers are not given any such training when they join the university. In fact, even if the teachers are already teaching those who are in practice, for example, when COVID was there, we were not taught about the technology. We were not given some tools. We were not acquainted with all these things. Rather, we had to learn them through trial and error. We used to sit together, we used to talk to the colleagues, and we used to ask other people that how they have been coping up with all these problems and how they are using various platforms and how they are overcoming different problems. So we used to talk to each other and we learned at our own. So unfortunately, teachers are not given any such opportunity or the courses whenever they join university.
Thank you very much, Ms. Amna. Now, Hassan, moving on to you, and as a student, do you feel that you and your peers have adequate digital literacy skills required to succeed at the university level? I'm talking particularly in terms of using MS Office Suite, using Excel, Microsoft Word, and all these basic software that are basically required at the university level. How would you describe their proficiency in comparison to yours when it comes to using such softwares for moderate to difficult tasks in a classroom setting?
First of all, thank you so much, Ms. Anum, for gracing me with the opportunity to talk about this on your platform and giving me a chance to speak in the presence of the honorable faculty members. First of all, I would like to tell you that what digital competency is for me. Digital competency and literacy is all about empowerment and autonomy for me. In order to develop your technological skills and ethical citizenship is practiced when you are on your mobile or your laptop. To reflect back to your question, I think in our curriculum and overall design was such that our instructors or the teachers, they made sure that they impart the practical skills such as university projects, interaction with the organizations and all, to say the least. We as students, we did have the exposure towards, one can say, the digital literacy world and how organizations are transforming towards digital. To say on the practical side of things, where tools proficiency came, I believe we are still not very apt in using tools such as Microsoft Office Suite. I think it's okay that one can say that at the beginner level, one must know how to use Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint. But MS Excel is like a mountain, a peak of the mountain, and you don't know how big the mountain is and what you have to climb to in order to reach the peak. So when the tools proficiency comes in the question, I believe we are still not very apt in using tools such as this, and we as journal are just less focused towards analytical upskilling. I also strongly believe that every student must be able to basically know the data and analysis tools, literally such as knowing basic SQL, other programming languages, and MS Excel. So the question really is that the proficiency in order to arrange your moderate and difficult task would be that the moderate tasks such as assignments and projects, they were covered by the basic adequate digital literacy that we had. But to deep down into the more hard skills, we did not have that adequate level of digital literacy skills.
Thank you so much, Hassan. Moving back to the educators, Ms. Amna and Dr. Zubair. Now I'll talk a bit about your classroom methodology and the way you cover content in the class while engaging with the students. What kind of technology enhanced teaching practices are generally used in incorporating in your classroom? And do they in any way affect your teaching methods and your engagement with the students in a good or bad way? If one by one you two could elaborate on that. Thank you. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you. So normally I used to prefer the extempore method of teaching that was more in vogue before the COVID-19 hit. But the PowerPoint presentations has always been there, and they are definitely useful for the students to understand and visualize what is in front of them. And visualization and animation is something that is something that I have incorporated during my classroom practices. So definitely technology is something that has really helped those students, like the students as a bunch of, as a group of different people have their different faculties that they require to understand and comprehend the matter at hand. So those students who are good in listening, they are fine with teacher presenting them with a topic of discussion. But for those students who are less apt to the listening faculty, it is always suitable for them to have some visual PowerPoint presentation or animation that enables them to have a better comprehension about the subject matters. And definitely this visual presentations and animation things have really increased in my case to bring more focus of the students to the subject matter at hand.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zubair. Over to you, Ms. Amna.
As Dr. Zubair has also said that in every classroom, there are various types of learners. Some are visual, some are audio listeners, and some are kinesthetic. So we have to always consider all these types of listeners. So in the past, when COVID wasn't there, we definitely used to have some aid of technology, such as we used to have laptops, multimedia, computers, and to some extent, the YouTube also. But after COVID, when the challenge was to engage all the students and to deliver your topic and to engage the students, etc., I learned to use Kahoot quizzes or YouTube videos with integrated quizzes or questions. And then the discussion boards were there, breakout rooms were there. So all these things basically helped a lot in engaging my students. And yes, I do believe that when I changed my teaching methodology from simple interaction with the students or with simply delivering my lecture with them to them, and after engaging them with all these resources, I found them that their engagement was improved, their learning was improved. They started giving me better responses. So yes, when I started using various teaching aids, different technology, it really helped a lot.
Thank you very much, Ms. Amna. And Kahoot, I think as a past student, Kahoot has been my absolute favorite. I think it helps a lot with the engagement. And of course, students find it
Yes.
absolutely fun. So yes, that's definitely one of the methods I think that would, that must have improved students' engagement. Now, talking about students, and we have Hassan with us. So Hassan, I'd ask you the next question. As a student and the one at the learning end or at the receiving end, how important do you think the integration of technology actually is in the classroom? And do you think that it impacts your learning and retention of the subject matter?
I think it is extremely important. You cannot expect a student to go out in the practical life and not have these basic literacy of technology skills. The technology integration with different aspects does not only help us professionally grow, but also personally. So I think allowing students to learn and refine these skills prepares them for life beyond the classroom. As per the impact of the learning and retention of the subject matter is concerned, I think technology tools such as online whiteboards, As Ma'am Amna has also said, Zoom meetings where the classroom break sessions were, the technique was used. Collaboration tools like MS Teams, Trello, they made sure that during the COVID, we were able to try and replicate the physical classroom and face-to-face collaboration as much as we could. So yes, they do impact your learning and retention of the subject matter. And we were also able to interact in a closer way by working through these technological tools. And they helped us to also retain our learning as proved to be practical for us. And because it wasn't always just about theory, it was also about taking out creative ways in order to make your students listen to you as well as respond to you. So I think it also creates pathways for differentiated instructions to meet the unique needs of the students as individual learners with a broader classroom climate.
Thank you, Hassan. Now, coming back to Dr. Zubair and Ms. Amna, if I talk about knowledge sharing, so a huge, I would say, element of the teaching is basically knowledge sharing among your colleagues, and sharing best practices among your among other teachers and your professors and the entire faculty. How does technology help in that aspect? And when it comes to streamlining the workload, does technology actually help, or do you feel it's just an additional burden or a chore that you have to kind of incorporate in your in your classroom activities and daily collaboration with the other teachers? Yes, Dr. Zubair, if you could start answering the question.
Okay. Your question has two parts. The first about the sharing of knowledge with the other educators. So these learning management systems, they are well integrated systems that allow you to share the documents and different research materials and tools with your peers. And this is really helpful in the knowledge sharing process. Alongside now, this has become such an integral feature of the teaching community and as a whole the society, that these WhatsApp groups, they would also allow us to share and enable us to share material with our peers and our educators. The second question, that the integration has helped the teachers to streamline the workload and enable them to perform efficiently. So I would say that it has really helped the workflow automation and improve efficiency alongside eliminating the human error in performing certain tasks. And I would say it has improved overall performance of the teachers to perform adequately well vis-a-vis their given tasks. And alongside, it has enabled more efficient learning when it comes to technology-driven lesson planning, discussions, boards, and video conferencing. These are the tools which have really augmented the teachers to be well integrated and reduce the burden when it comes to performing different and difficult tasks at hand.
Thank you, Dr. Zubair. Over to you, Ms. Amna.
See, I think integration of technology in the classrooms has always been very helpful because when we are teaching in the classroom, if we are simply delivering the lecture and students are at the passive end and they are just listening, most of the times it becomes very boring for the students to keep listening to the teacher. But when we integrate technology in the classroom, whenever we use different resources, either they are the videos or they are discussion boards or they are any other kind of material, students are more engaged into it. So whenever the technology is integrated, yes, it does help a lot. And then when we are using some resources and we are discussing with our peers and we tell to each other that these are the resources that I have been using and I have found them very useful, we share it with each other. And whenever we share our content with each other, the videos that we have searched or any other game boards that we have searched, when we share it with each other, it saves our time and resources and then the energy as well. So it does streamline our work. It saves resources. It saves energy. And yes, if we all are searching for various things, it would add more burden to our teaching. But whenever we share all the things with each other, it does help to streamline our workload.
Thank you, Ms. Amna. Hassan, so the educators in this conversation mentioned the use of LMS, right? Now, from a student's perspective, how do you use the learning management system? Is it solely for the purpose of getting the notifications and updates from the teachers, or do you use it to collaborate with other students as well and perhaps share notes and share learnings with the other students?
And I think learning management system is all about being involved in a collaboration. It is basically the information literacy that you are getting from them. Their digital learning sources are always, as both these honorable teachers have said, it cuts out on the cost. It is easier to use. Same goes for us as students. It is easier for us to navigate and make time for ourselves to study in a better situation or in a better time when we feel like it. So yeah, I think digital learning management systems do help us same way as it helps the faculty.
Okay, and is there any way that you can, perhaps collaborate with other students, communicate with them, share notes and all of that? If you
Thing
could
that we
unmute
have,
yourself.
sure.
Yeah.
Am I audible to you?
Yes, yes, you are.
Yeah. Okay, so at this point of time, no, we don't. We do not have integrated system where we can share notes and other stuff with our students, fellows. The only thing that we have is WhatsApp. We do use it. MS Teams is also available there, but it is to a point that only the teacher interaction is with the students. So we do have our learning management system in the university that is affiliated with the educational design of the virtual university of our campus. And it was only available to us during the times that we had our hybrid subjects. So basically what happens is that we do not attend the online classes. We do not attend the physical classes, but we rather take notes and modules and handbooks that are available on the learning management system. So we do get to interact with the teachers and what they have for us in the box. But for us as students, I think at this point of time, no, we don't have any platform where we can share the same way as teachers share with the students.
Okay, just a follow-up question, Hassan. So you mentioned,
I can just, if I can just add,
sure, sure.
perhaps the problem is that we don't have any uniform learning-based management system across Pakistan, particularly in the higher education institutions. So my experience is that at NUST and in the University of London external programs, they have these chat rooms where the students can come together and they can talk on different subject matters and they can share their opinions and the course materials. So perhaps the problem is that in some universities, you don't have these structured, designed learning management system that cope up with all the requirements and needs of the students and the teachers. So this is something that really need to be looked upon, that how a more uniform policy can be formed in this regard. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Zubair, for your input, because my follow-up question was basically with regards to the MS Teams and the WhatsApp groups that Hassan had mentioned in his conversation, that are these actually moderated or supervised by the teachers, or are these some informal spaces that are made by the students for the students just for the purpose of note sharing and collaboration?
Honestly, so what really happens is that if we have 6 subjects in this course or this semester, we make 6 groups respectively in the WhatsApp. The moment we add the teacher or the faculty member, uh, the way we talk to each other gets very formal. And the only thing that we are talking to each other is about, do we have a quiz tomorrow? Do we have a quiz yesterday? Did we miss on something? But when it is not being moderated by the teachers, it is very easy for us to share even the fact that this is something that we did not get to understand. Did you attend the class? Did you not get this? It is very easy for us to talk about this when we are not being moderated. But I think there should be a very informal kind of relationship between the teacher and the student. Obviously, the respect is there, but we should be able to explain to our teachers that this is something, or ma'am, this is something that we are having trouble understanding, and knowing that he is not going to mind that. And I know so many teachers that are overly helping for us. They come to us and they go like, if you don't understand anything, come to us, we'll definitely try and make things easy for you. So yes, I think the whole learning management system, other than the WhatsApp and MS Teams, is very integrated. And I humbly believe that it is only feasible when they are used at their best, and when we as students are making the most out of it.
Thank you, Hassan, for the input. Now we've been extensively talking about COVID and what has happened in the education sector, particularly in the past 2 years, considering the scenario of COVID. Now, Dr. Zubair, if you could just point out or discuss some of the major challenges faced by teachers and the faculty during the COVID times, and how the shift from face-to-face to online webinars kind of was dealt by the teachers and the faculty. If you could shed some light on that.
So the COVID was something unprecedented. We had such a major challenge, not in terms of education sector, but every facet of life. And the biggest problem for a developing country like Pakistan was many of the students, like we have 2 million students in the higher education sector in Pakistan. And somewhere around 500,000 or more students are coming from the remote areas of Pakistan. So these students definitely face structural constraints, which included like in these remote areas, like the infrastructure, the internet infrastructure, digital infrastructure is not very efficient. And they had really hard time in connecting and getting in touch with their teachers and students. The second problem was the digital literacy, because if the teachers even were equipped with handling the digital domain, most of the students were not. And that was the biggest problem that the students had to face, because the submission of assignment, giving the tests and the quizzes, it required formal or informal digital literacy that was not present over there. And then the technical issues, and most of the students had only the in-person interaction with the teachers. This was the way they used to learn in the formal class domain. And then there was this time management issue and lack of two-way communication, which is very significant for me, because like if you are not getting the feedback from the students, you won't be able to understand that how much knowledge the students have been able to incorporate. So these variety of issues, including the structural constraint, the digital literacy, the technical issues, the communication issue, the time management, all these issues were faced by the teachers and students alike during the COVID time.
Amna, my same question would be to you. Do you want me to repeat the question? I think you did lose some connection over there. Okay. So my question was basically with regards to the shift from face-to-face to online teaching during COVID, and what were some of the challenges that you and your faculty had to face during this transition? Please unmute yourself.
Thank you. Once again, basically the major challenge was using technology, because everybody was not a tech-friendly person. So people who were like me, they were facing a lot of issues, not only with the technology, but the fluctuating internet as well. And then managing classrooms was also a big problem. And as I was discussing it with Hassan, that when the COVID was there and we didn't know how to handle the situation and how to start with the Zoom meetings, etc., many people gave their class links to many outsiders as well. So managing the outsiders along with teaching the students was again a major challenge. So managing them, teaching the students, and then restricting the outsiders to enter in your classroom, these all things were major challenges. Moreover, convincing and motivating the students to attend the classes and to participate in the class activities or the discussion. So these all were major challenges. So once all these were handled well, I think we all overcome all these problems. But yes, when COVID was there, the lockdown was there, and everybody was very pessimistic, and the negative vibes were there. So keeping them motivated, engaging them in all these learning activities, these all were major challenges.
Thank you, Ms. Amna. Now, Hassan, same question to you, but again, with regards to your own perspective. Of course, there must have been some pros and cons of this entire shift from face-to-face to online, okay? We are somewhat aware of the cons, but if you could throw some light on the pros as well, and also discuss some cons while doing so.
Definitely. I think this is one of my favorite questions of this talk because I get to say a lot of things and I can mention a lot of things from my perspective and a student perspective, because most of the times there are things that are hidden from your parents as well as your teachers. But I think I can be very open and honest about this. So it is interesting how subjective this question is. To reflect back to the pros of this situation was that at the very first, it was the accessibility of time and place for us. I know so many students, including me, that took the classes from the comfort of their bed and even from the driving seat of their car. So this was one of the best pros of the online classes. Second was, which I believe is, which I saw very closely, was that the affordability was there. So most of the times what I see is most of the students who have come from far away long places, they used to have trouble affording the everyday commute to their university. So I did see an increase in the student participation in terms of the attendance, because they did not have to bear the affordness of coming to the university every day. So the affordability was there. Students were happy to be at home and taking the classes, which is why there was a bigger attendance rate in the classes. Third would be that there was no academic anxiety, I would say. The sessions used to be very interactive, and we used to have the room to practice our creativity and innovation. And we used to be very informal with our teachers in a way that we used to tell and talk about everything that had been going on with the COVID situation and political instability in the country and many other things. So I think these are it. These were the pros, but I think I would agree with the teachers here that the cons were always there, and they were more in the so the cons would be that I'm sure the teachers present here would agree with me. uh, One of the biggest con was that during the online classes, maintaining this sufficient motivation was one of the biggest challenges, even for us as students and even for the teachers. So what we see in generally in the physical classes is I like to believe that the communication between a teacher and a student in the class when physically present is somewhere around 60-40%, or maybe 70-30%, 70 in the favor of the teacher, that he or she is speaking to the class or delivering their lecture. But when I talk about the online classes, I would say that it was more like 90 to 10% ratio. We as students, we were too lazy to answer back, and we would say that yes, we do understand. The only thing we used to say in most of the classes was, yes, we do get it, we do understand whatever you are saying. And the teacher used to go on and on for hours, and we used to, I as personally used to feel bad for the teacher in a way that he or she is trying everything to do is trying everything to give out lecture and fulfill his duty. But we, on the other hand, we are very lazy and not taking the class as we should be, and we cannot do the same thing while being present in the physical class. So the communication gap along with the technology issues was always there. um, then would be the inability of sitting for long in front of the screen, and I always lost focus until or unless something very interesting was going on in the class. Lastly, because I've stretched it for a very long, I would say that the learning course material was very less, and I say this very openly and honestly, that whatever we learned in the online classes, we just remember that as something that happened yesterday. uh, it's just a flashback and nothing more. In comparison to what we learn in the physical classes, we did not get to practice the classroom activities. We could not learn from a point of view that we are sitting in front of the teacher and we can just point out and say, "Sir, we did not get this. आप ये दोबारा समझा दें." Uh, Online classes, it was very difficult for us to for the teacher and the students to interrupt each other and then wait for them to have a good connection so one can ask the question. So yes, cons were always there and more in nature.
Thank you, Hassan, for the elaborate response. And I'm sure the teachers would agree that the teachers were under immense pressure to kind of be creative in their teaching methodologies, and also to engage the students, because of course sitting in front of the screen does get taxing for the students and for the teachers as well, and especially for the teachers because they have to deliver perhaps the same lecture twice or thrice in a span of a week. So it does really require a lot of creativity from the end of teachers, and of course a lot of patience, that goes without saying. So with this, I would move forward to the next question and would ask you to Dr. Zubair and Ms. Amna about some of the learnings that you have gained from this entire experience, and have those learnings in any way shaped your next session's teaching material, methodology, or strategy? And if you could share your best practices with us that that you feel like you've been incorporating in the future as well. Yes, please.
So I would take this question as an extension of what we have discussed in the previous question, that because of the structural constraints that we have at hand, I think that we have to be, in my personal opinion, have to be more digitally efficient and competent. This was something that I have learned, because you have to maintain the level of engagement with the students. You have to have more responses from the students, and if you are not equipped well with the tools which are requisite for becoming more efficient and competent, you won't be able to engage your students in a proactive manner. So this was something that was my personal experience during the COVID-19, that you have to be digitally more competent and efficient. The second thing is that normally when we come to the class, we have a lecture that we have to deliver to the students, and then we take their responses. So the thing that I did during the COVID pandemic and online sessions was that I used to uh, provide material to the students, to the resource to the students beforehand, and I made it more of a project-based learning system. I used to provide them with different assignments, and rather than merely giving them lectures, I used to give them assignments, online assignments, and used to get their response during the classes. So this was something in terms of teaching methodology that actually really helped me to use technology in the online classrooms, and provided me with this opportunity to engage students at a different level this time.
Thank you, Dr. Zubair. Ms. Amna, same question to you. Any learnings that you would be incorporating?
Okay. Basically, digital revolution itself was a big change and learning experience for all of us. And I realized that students love to explore things. So what I did was that I used to tell them that this is something that we would be discussing in the next class. And I used to give them an overview of the topic. And then I used to ask them to explore it. They used to explore it, and then they used to send me the messages, because we used to have some informal discussion on the WhatsApp, in the WhatsApp groups, and then we used to have our regular lecture. So in the WhatsApp group, they used to tell me that this is something that we have explored and this is what we have come to know about it. Then I tried to start my own YouTube channel, although there are very few lectures on that. But then I tried to, and I thought about recording my own lectures. And then I shared it with them. And then they listened to it, because otherwise there were many students who used to say that we have unstable internet connection and we cannot attend the class because of so many other reasons. So I used to give them my lectures, and I used to integrate quizzes in it. So it was very much important for them to listen and go through that video lecture, and then they knew that there is either an assignment followed by it or a quiz. So they used to take interest in it, and they used to participate in Jamboard activities, or they used to give their answers on the discussion boards. And that was really very helpful, because they knew that all of the students are interacting with each other and with the teacher at the same time, and their answers are visible to everyone. So when I brought in these Jamboard activities and the breakout room discussions, they were very interesting and they participated in it. And there was another thing that was task-based learning, or there was a project-based learning. I used to give them smaller activities, and I used to ask them that this is an activity and this is the purpose or the goal or the objective of this activity, and you have to come up with your own ideas. So that also was very helpful, because as I said earlier, that passive listening or passive learning for the students itself was very difficult. So keeping them engaged in various activities was very helpful during this pandemic also. So task-based learning, I would say that it really helped a lot in engaging the students and motivating them to participate in the things.
Ms. Amna, just a follow-up question. Since you mentioned recording lectures through YouTube and sharing it with the students, was this something that you were asked by the university, or was that your own initiative?
Basically, our university asked us to record our lectures on PowerPoint presentation and then share it with the students. Since in our university, the students from all over the country, they come to Lahore, and they are admitted in different departments. So they are from far of places. For example, there are students for Gilgit-Baltistan. There were a few students from Kashmir. There were the students from Balochistan, etc. So definitely, they did not have access to stable internet connection. So we were asked to record our lectures and share it with the students. If they had access to internet where they could use WhatsApp only, so we used to send our voice messages to them. But definitely all these resources were not quite enough for them. So a few of us thought about recording our video lectures and sharing it with the students. So I took the responsibility of recording a few lectures, and I shared it with all my students as well as other faculty members. So this is how we took the initiative and recorded our video lectures.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Amna. Now the next question is basically directed to all of you, and would really appreciate if you could all answer it from your own perspective. As I mentioned earlier during the introduction, that a major aspect or component of digital competency is basically the safe and ethical use of internet, and of course these online spaces, online communities. Is this something that the teachers and students, for that matter, are taught while conducting these subjects online or while using the internet? Or do you feel that this is not something that's talked about during the class or even before the start of the session or anything? One by one, first of all, Dr. Zubair, then Ms. Amna, and then Hassan, you would be answering the question.
So it brings us to the normative discourse regarding the teaching practices and the digital domain. And this is the common problem that we have been facing in the recent times, that the phenomena such as cyberbullying and unethical practices during the exams. So normally there are some guidelines or the standard operating procedures which are provided by the university, and the students are aware of it because they are provided it at the start of every semester. And during the classes, the teachers do have their own way of communicating to the students that what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. For instance, when it comes to the plagiarism, for instance, and the use of the appropriate and safe sites for learning and research, we have our own guidelines, and we do spread it to the students that you have to remain under the ethical practices, and you should not exceed the limits in this regard. Then you have the copyright laws. Whenever you are using a source, you have to mention it, and then there is a fair use practices and the prevention of cyberbullying. You should not act in a harmful manner to your actions should not be harmful to your peers or to your teachers even, because it has been noticed, frankly, that there have been these memes and other what you can say aspects of it that have been used to bully the students as well as the teachers, frankly. And then the discouragement of unethical practices during the exam, because the COVID was the time when you had the access of all those resources and material that you can use for the unfair means. So yes, there was the guidelines provided by the universities, and this was the scenario where we used to learn so many things about these unethical practices, and we used to communicate and educate our students that this is something that would eventually not helpful for you in the longer run, because if you are going to pass the exams using these unfair means, eventually you are going to learn nothing or anything. So we used to discourage the students to not perform such activities.
Ms. Amna, if you could answer the same question, please.
I think that most of us did try to teach to our students that which websites they can use, which learning resources they can use, that and how many resources are available over there. But unfortunately, not all of us taught them the netiquettes or the net etiquettes. The biggest problem that I faced was that we failed to tell our students that when, how, and how much to communicate with the teacher. Because when the COVID was there, we all had given our WhatsApp numbers to our students. And I remember that they used to send us a message at any time. So it was very important to tell them that, beta, this is the time in which you can send us the messages and we would be able to respond to you. But after this particular timing, please try not to contact the teacher. So this was the ethical consideration that I think that we failed to tell them that this is the time where you have to contact to your teachers. And then again, as Dr. Zubair has also said, that plagiarism policy, though it was a written policy and we did share it with our students, but again, the plagiarized content was there. And as Dr. Zubair has also mentioned, that cyberbullying and harassment, this was again very much over there. And we all know that many people changed their names and their display pictures, and they bully different people. And yes, this was something that we were supposed to teach to our students, but they took very long to understand all these things.
Hassan, before I come towards you to ask you to answer the same question, just a follow-up question from Dr. Zubair and Ms. Amna. So you did mention it like with regards to the students and what kind of practices were they involved in. What about the teachers? Were any guidelines issued prior to conducting the online classes as to what kind of language teachers should use? Like, we do talk about a lot about corporal punishment and all of that, but of course, in an online setting, these are some of the things that cannot be, of course, supervised or moderated. So were there any particular set of was there any particular set of instructions for the teachers themselves as to how they should conduct themselves during an online class, and how they should kind of deal with such kind of irresponsible behavior if it comes from the students?
There was no particular guidelines regarding how to engage in the or during the class, but all of our lectures were recorded lectures, and they were like, when you are going through recorded lectures, it is pretty much obvious and evident that you won't be able to engage in any such practice or use such language that would be inappropriate. Regarding the students' activities, because they were not being monitored, most of the cases, students used to complain that if they are going to switch on their videos, the internet connection won't be suitable to get through the lecture. So if there was any problem, we were asked to provide feedback to the administration, because in the cyber domain, you cannot do anything. You cannot penalize the student or anything like that. But yes, in some cases, we had reported it back to the administration, and this was something that we were asked to in case of any inappropriate behavior was being noticed.
Thank you. So if Samna, you could briefly talk about that, and then I'll move on to Hassan and ask
Ji.
the previous question.
In our case, I think no such proper guidelines were there, but yes, we were very much strict about the plagiarism policy. So we had that written plagiarism policy, and this is something that we usually share with the, not usually, but we always share it with the students, either in the online classes or in on-campus classes, at least in my case, and I know about many teachers who always share their plagiarism policy with the students. And I tell them that this is something that if I read it and from one student, and if I read it from the other students, it would click me that these are the same things. So as far as the plagiarism policy is concerned, that was very much clear, and there was a written policy, and that was shared with everyone. So we as the teachers as well as the students, we all knew that these are the guidelines that have been provided to us, and we have to stick to this. So yes, as far as the language is concerned, we were asked to use English language only, and we were not allowed to use any other language. Yes, but if the informal discussion was going on, in that case, we were allowed to use our regional language, not exactly the regional, but the national language to elaborate different things. But otherwise, no such written guidelines were there.
Thank you so much, Ms. Amna. Now, Hassan, I'll just modify the question a bit, since two of the teachers have mentioned sharing the guidelines or the netiquettes with the students. As the students, how were those guidelines received by the students? And since, of course, you are, more closely linked with the student community and with the student members of the class, did students used to act upon those guidelines and take them into consideration while conducting themselves in the class or while working on an assignment?
So Anum, if I overview this whole digital competency topic in a way that is safe and ethical, I think it went into the favor of the students more than the teachers. It is very important to mention here that the best students were at doing was breaking the confidence of the teacher, which for me is something that I did not support or I did not like at all. As I have mentioned earlier, that 90% of the times the teacher was speaking, 10% times the only times the student is speaking is, yes, we get it, this is that, this is that. So the teaching practices were there. As you have asked me that did we act upon it, then it is sad to say that we did not. Not in a sense we were very fearful of the fact that plagiarism is always there. We cannot copy from the internet or cite other names without without the proper citations. So yes, we were fearful of the fact that we cannot provide plagiarized work, and we did fear that the teachers were going to cut our marks. But if you go and ask a student, why did you do exactly what was told not to do? Then the common reply used to be like, what can we do? We did not understand a word that was going on in the class. So I think a hand in hand, I would say that it was more in the favor of the students. We could be at the comfort of our home and do whatever we wished. And most of the practices were wrong, and I deeply condemn it.
Thank you, Hassan. Now, I'll just quickly move on to the very last question. We discussed the pros and cons of these practices and these online classes and in this entire shift. And we also talked in detail about the digital competency and what it entails. if I would ask each one of you to share your recommendations when it comes to increasing the digital competency of the teachers and the faculty at your respective universities, what would those recommendations be? Any steps that you had incorporated in your own teaching methodology that kind of proved really helpful? Any recommendation that you would want to give from your end? Please, starting off with Dr. Zubair, then Ms. Amna, and then Hassan.
So this post-COVID scenario, it has the digital domain has become the reality of our lives. And in terms of higher education learning, I believe that there has to be uniform policies by the Higher Education Commission of Pakistan, that there must be teaching digital literacy teaching sessions for the students and the teachers before they start teaching and sitting in the classes. This is something that would enable and augment our digital literacy to such a level where there is a more synchronization between the teachers and the students, and we and they can perform our task at hand with more vigor and with real zeal.
Thank you, Dr. Zubair. Over to you, Ms. Amna.
Okay, I believe that digital literacy does not require that teachers become the experts, but it does require that they understand the digital tools that they can unlock their deeper teaching potential. So what I think is that free of cost or courses, I would focus on free of cost courses, because definitely the teachers are already putting extra efforts in teaching the students. So I think free courses must be offered to the teachers, and they must be taught, or they must be acquainted to how to use the digital resources. And then it would be very important to tell them that how they can be innovative with the resources that are already available over there. So giving them the opportunity to learn about different digital tools, and then offering them the courses that they can start with. These are, I think, something that must be offered to the teachers.
Thank you so much, Ms. Amna. Hassan, any recommendations from your end to the teachers, and as well any learnings from your end that you want to share with the students?
I just want to mention that the policy making, as Dr. Bilal has said, policy making and workshops are very important for us to redesign the curriculum and the way assessments are conducted. I think there should be seminars should be taken out which focus on the building their digital skills in students, and it is important for them to know why they are important and how they help you. So training for teachers as well as for the students is required. And I think half of the time when I have to learn something new, why should I go to YouTube or see courses on Coursera or Digital Google Garage? Why my university is not at the end of providing me these things? For an ambitious student, I love to practice and learn new things. Let's take an example of MS Excel. There was just one course in our whole degree which was focusing on these skills. I think there is a dire need for more of these, and there are many ways that you can start doing this in higher education, and maybe they should really start from the school level. You start to learn them from schools, and then later on be more expert on it when you go to college. And when you get into university, you should be really equipped with all these skills in order to be a really good employee at the end of the day.
Thank you so much, all of you, for these insightful responses. And I think one thing that COVID has taught us is that we are living in unprecedented times. And I think it's about time that we start building the capacity of our teachers as well as our students, so that we are not waiting for these circumstances to kind of start learning these digital skills. Instead, the students and teachers should be well equipped and should be competent enough to tackle these technologies and these new platforms on their own. And with this, we come to the end of today's discussion. And I'm really grateful to our esteemed panelists for being part of today's conversation and enlightening our audience. I hope the audience had a good time and learned something out of it. To the viewers, thank you very much for joining us, and I hope to see you all next week. Allah Hafiz, and have a great weekend. Thank you so much.